Good morning, welcome to
MathPractice200.
Math Practice number 200. Well, yesterday we talked about pi, right?
Yeah.
And do you remember how you define pi?
It's the circumference over the diameter.
Right, pi is defined as the ratio of the circumference to the diameter, or we can rewrite this as pi times the diameter equals the circumference. Okay?
Yep.
So if I have a circle whose diameter is 6, what's the circumference?
The circumference. The 6 pi.
6 pi, very good. 6 pi. And if I have a circle whose radius is 2, what's the circumference?
4 pi.
How did you figure that out?
Because 2 times 2 is 4.
Where does that come into play?
Okay. 2 plus 2 is 4 big.
Well, either way.
2 radiuses is 1 diameter.
Okay, so we get the diameter is 4, and then the circumference is pi times the diameter, or 4 pi. Okay?
Yeah.
Alright, now, you ready to do a slightly more challenging one?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. What if the circumference is 10 pi? What's the radius? So I tell you, it's 10 pi all the way around. What's the radius? Ooh.
5.
How'd you figure that out?
Because you divide 10 in half and you get the radius.
Oh, you divide 10 by 10 pi. But what do you have to divide 10 pi by first?
Well, you have to divide it by the diameter.
Well, how did you go from, what did you do? What were your steps to go from 10 pi to the radius of 5? Radius of 5 is correct. So how did you figure that out?
Well, 10 divided in 2 groups is 5.
Okay, and why was 10 important in this number, in this problem?
Well, it's even, so it's easier to divide.
Okay, well, alright, let me explain. The circumference is pi times the diameter, so 10 is the diameter, right?
Yeah.
So in order to get the diameter,
You have to divide.
the diameter is 10 pi divided by pi. That's our formula here, the circumference divided by the diameter.
Yeah.
And we cancel the pi's, and we're left with the diameter is 10.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yeah.
And then the radius is half of that. But what if the circumference doesn't have a pi in it? Ooh. What if the circumference is 10? Ooh. Now what's the radius?
5 pi? No.
What would we do?
Well, we have to get the diameter.
Right, so we have our formula here that pi times the diameter is the circumference. So the diameter is the circumference divided by pi. Okay, so what is 10, which is our circumference, divided by pi? What's 10 divided by pi?
Well, 10 divided by...
You know what that is?
Well, it's... Pi is close to 3.
Pi is close to 3.
But you can't divide 10 into 3 groups.
You can't divide 10 into 3 groups, so why don't we just say that the diameter is 10 divided by pi? Just like that, and just leave it like that, because we don't know what that is, right?
Yeah.
So we'll just leave it as 10 divided by pi. So what's the radius then?
The radius is 5 divided by pi.
Good job. Okay. Pretty neat, right?
Yeah.
Alright, now do you want to do some challenging area problems?
Okay.
Alright, what was our area formula from yesterday?
Well, you do the area two radius times the circumference. 2 radius times pi.
Pi times the radius squared. There you go.
Hmm.
Ooh, so that's the formula for the area. So if I have a circle whose radius is 4, what's my area?
4 pi? No. The radius squared. You have to do pi times the diameter. No.
The radius squared. What is 4 squared?
4 squared is 16.
Okay, so that's our square right there. So what's my area?
Is 16 pi.
16 pi. Very good. What if the radius is 5?
25 pi.
25 pi. You just square the radius. Okay. Now, ha-ha! Ha-ha-ha! What if the diameter is 12? The diameter is 12. What's the area now?
36 pi?
How'd you figure that out?
Because the 2 radiuses equal a diameter.
Right?
So you just divide 12 into 2 groups, you get 6.
Yeah.
And then you times it by pi, you get 36 pi.
Okay, so you have to square it. You divide it in half, square it. 6 squared is...
It's 36.
So now you get 36 pi. Pretty good.
Cool.
Alright, last challenge question.
Okay.
Suppose you have your area, your radius is 6 here, but now I only want the area of half the circle. Ooh, what's that going to be? Oh, what are we going to do? How are we going to figure that out?
You have to divide 36 into 2 groups, and then you have to times that by pi.
Okay.
So 36 divided by itself is 18.
18 pi. Very good. High five. Wow. That's pretty neat.
Cool.
That's introduction to pi.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's very fun. Alright, good job this morning, sweetie.